Good Thursday evening to you, internet denizens. How is everyone? It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. And I, the person doing the seeing and being glad about it, and Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. We made it. We're almost there. Stay on target. We're almost to Friday. So I'm glad everybody is here out there lurking quietly in the audience, no doubt. Kabuki, namaste. Mercury Wells, good to see you. How are you? But have we got a fun show for you guys tonight? But before I get into that, of course, I want to remind you, if you haven't already, please do click the subscribe button and click the bell icon for notifications. It's super duper helpful. And whether you're watching the video now or at some point in the future, if you could give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below and tell me what you like about it, I'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, of course, this live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures they'd like to play, whether it's for the OSR, for 5th edition, or anything else. Old school is in play at the table with Hellebarde Games, and you can find them on DriveThruRPG or on their website, hellebardegames.com. So last night, we did some more deep dive into L1, and I am sorry we didn't go longer, guys. My voice was just flatlining, and I figured, I'd be basically sounding like Gollum if I tried to press ahead for that. But don't worry, we've got more L1 deep dive coming on Monday. So if you guys love Secret of Bone Hill as much as I do, we're going to continue on with that read. And of course, tomorrow night, we are back to the radioactive biological horror wastes of Gamma World with our group of wanderers. We're going to find out what forbidden secrets of the dark before time they're going to unlock. Robert Phillips, Jimmy Invictus, north of the Rockies. I had to, Jimmy. There's a long story behind that. I'll get into the loss of the beard later, but it basically came down to safety. When I start doing the 3D printing video, standing out there in the heat, the Florida heat, doing 3D resin printing, I've got to have a respirator. But that's for another channel. That's for another YouTube channel entirely. Anyway, we have fun stuff to talk about. Guys, I have gone on and on before about how if one cultivates, if one curates positive vibes, they will come back to you. And when I first got out on Twitter, it was a new thing, but there it was. And I said, I'll just kind of expand out in that direction a little bit. And I started using Twitter. What I found, guys, was that you send positive out, you get positive back. You don't click on the outrage bait. You don't fall into the screaming at each other fits. And you will find that there are some really, really awesome folks out there in the tabletop space, all over social media. We just start barking at each other and just start listening to each other. And so I was absolutely just over the moon to have met tonight's guest out there, and God bless her. I have been nattering her now for months to come on the show, and finally she's here tonight. She is an actress. She is a veteran D&D player. She is an all-around awesome person, and I'm going to stop just talking about it now and bring her on. Everybody, put your hands together and then take them apart, realizing that I can't hear you applaud for the one, the only Laura Daniel. Laura, how are you?
Why, hello. What a fantastic introduction.
Oh, I do my best anyway.
You definitely have a bit of the bard about you, I must say, Bill.
that is my second favorite class to play, but thank you so much for being here, Laura. It's wonderful to finally have you on the show, and
I'm
thank
delighted.
you for being here. So, for those out in audience land who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, won't you?
Sure. I am on Twitter, aka X, as Madam DM. That title came to me from my husband. My husband was actually my first dungeon master when I started back in 1990, and I started DMing probably, oh gosh, I don't know. I want to say a decade after that, but it might have been sooner because I wanted him to be able to play. He's such a great
Mhm.
player. And so I've been into D&D for a very, very, very long time. And I like you were saying, I think that the if you look for it, you can find it. But I love all the creativity that people share online. And that's one of the things I love to do. Is every day I usually will ask a question, and it's just so fun to see what people are gonna say about their experiences. So I'm an actor, and so I fell into D&D because I do improv, and that's what happened. My husband and I had been cast in the Shakespeare troupe for the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair. I'm originally from California, so
Okay.
getting cat it was this was one of my first paid gigs, and I love Shakespeare, so I popped on out. And little did I know that I would end up falling in love with D&D as well. Although, fun story, my dad had gotten the original box set back in the 70s when I was a kid, and he just was such a workaholic. He never had time to really delve into it, but I was always fascinated by that cover, so I was always sort of surrounded by the art, and I love it. I'm kind of addicted to it.
It's an addiction. I think we all share, and it's one of those things that kind of infuses one's DNA. We're of that generation where it's part and parcel of the background noise of our life, and there's so many wonderful times to be had in those simple rule books. And it certainly sounds like you had a great introduction there. Your husband being your first DM, and then you taking on the mantle. Now you mentioned your acting. What are some of the projects you've there's something in your IMDb bio, and this is my Swiss cheese brain, of course, letting certain details about. But you worked with Martin Short, was it?
I did during COVID. Actually, I had done a short film with a friend, and she recommended me to her manager, and my manager put me out there, and I booked this commercial with Martin Short for Single Care, and I played Barbara Walters, which was so fun. Of course, the commercial is cut to like 30 seconds, but I had like a 2-page scene with him, and he was just the most wonderful, generous actor. And it was so lovely because it was just one-on-one, like as if I was Barbara Walters. And he was so kind. He's like, well, I don't know if you know, I have this other show. And I'm like, oh, I know. Only Murders in the Building. Hello.
Right.
But he was so kind, and it was such a great experience and such a huge set. It was filmed in Brooklyn, actually, in a huge warehouse. Really incredibly fun. And then just recently, I kicked off this year with a really yummy supporting role in a feature film called The Christmas Letter, which brings together Chevy Chase, Randy Quaid, and Brian Doyle Murray, all these comedy greats. And I just finished filming that last week, and I had a really, really fun supporting role. It was like 4 scenes with the lead. So I'm still kind of high on that. It was such a blast. Yeah, it was so much fun.
That is really cool. So I've got to ask you, Martin Short, what race class combo does he prefer?
Oh man, I wish I could have asked him that. Oh,
come on! You gotta keep this in the front of your mind here. The important questions you have to ask.
Right? God, okay, so now I have to do Only Murders in the Building so I could ask him that. Man, I really want to say he's like a Kender, because he's just. Although I know people are not. There's not a lot of love for Kenders, but I love them.
That is the only negativity I will send your way, Laura. Is Kender. You're going to see over in the chat, people are going to be popping like, "Oh no, she said the K word."
I know. How could I do it? One of my friends had played one and she played it so well. And I always kind of veer chaotic when I play as a player anyway. So, right. So I was delighted with her, but not everybody else was.
Yeah.
I bet you Martin Short would surprise us all by being like a paladin or something. He has a really really sweet core to him that I think but I think he's a natural bard. My God, all the different characters and voices he can do. He's just and that his energy is still off the charts is inspirational.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He does stuff a bit more rarely than, say, back when he's coming out of SCTV and everything. So it's always a joy to see him when he does things these days.
Indeed. I have to ask you, Bill. I mean, I know you mainly DM, but I think I know what your favorite character is, your favorite class. But what would you pick if you could play today?
Right now, if somebody just grabbed me and said, "Hey, let's go play AD&D," whatever, you can take the minimum stats and run the character. I don't care. Paladin.
Yeah.
I gotta go Paladin, man. It's just it's my jam, and it's not the it's not the Warhammer 40K kind of Paladin, purge the unclean or anything like that. It's more the I don't know if you've read. Well, basically, it's the blueprint for the Paladin class in D&D, 3 Hearts and 3 Lions by Poul Anderson. But I always loved Holger the Dane. That is, if you read that book, I promise you, Laura, and this is anybody in the audience who hasn't, if you read that book, it is the code, it is the source code for how the Paladin class was invented for Dungeons and Dragons. Gary read it, loved it, and there are some other tropes, regenerating trolls, the Swan May, and a lot of people think it was Michael Moorcock's Law, Chaos, Neutrality that created the alignment system for D&D, but it was actually more the Law, Chaos, Neutrality that was in 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, which came out well before Moorcock started doing this stuff.
Neat. I will definitely check it out. It's funny. I thought you might say something of the Arthurian legend, Camelot and the knights therein, but neat.
Yeah. I mean, Borman's Excalibur is just like, that's like part of my brain is just devoted to that. It's just stored in firmware up here. So, and just a couple of things. One real brief. So you worked with Chevy Chase a little bit. He was in that great episode of Community, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where they all sat down and played D&D. But I'm guessing not a lot for Mr. Chase on the gaming front. Right? Very busy.
I actually did not work with him. He had a cameo, so he was a specific scene. I had.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So I would have loved to, but I really enjoyed what the folks that I got to work with. There was a lot of up and comers and very funny cast. So yeah, but I know I hear you on that for sure.
Right on. So you brought up Kender, and this I actually caught this from another awesome person on Twitter this morning, was telling me about the Dragonlance TV series deal that wasn't. Yeah. Joe Manganiello tried to make it happen. It sounds like he had a pretty interesting, unique vision. What's your take on that?
Oh man, I saw that as well just before I hopped on to this chat with you, and I'm so bummed. I'm so bummed that it didn't move forward, because I love those books, and I think anyone who's read them just feels very passionately about those, and then also the Test of the Twins. Those trilogy. I mean, there's just so many great stories. The storytelling is so emotional, and so I can see why Joe saw it as very cinematic. I mean, I saw the cartoon version that was done, oh God, so many years ago. I am blanking on the creators of it, but I think there's so much that could be done with a live action series. So I was really sad to see that. I don't think it'll be the end of it though. I am sure somebody will pick it up, especially as the love for fantasy keeps growing, and it really does. I do think it'll be revisited. It just may take some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Kabuki, of course, there. That was the Kiefer Sutherland voicing Race in that one. Yeah.
Yes. He did a good job.
Oh yeah. You know, and it's one of the, I had mentioned earlier about, you know, when you and I were just kind of chatting, my channel blew up when Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro kind of fumbled the ball, shall we say. But you know, it seems so odd that if they're that intent on promoting if they want to make more money with their most money making thing, which by all accounts is Dungeons and Dragons, why not push it? You know, that's just I don't know the business. I'm not in the industry, as it were, but I would think that they would see an opportunity like this where you've got a passionate fan of the works. You know, like you know, Games Workshop jumped on Henry Cavill when he said, "Hey, I want to do a Warhammer 40K show." And he just drove the truck of cash up to him and said, you know, take my money. So I would have thought that this would have been a surefire thing. I heard about it back, gosh, I think it was this past summer, and I was like, well, that's going to happen. But
I thought the same thing. I remember seeing because I think Joe was showing some of his vision for it, and there were like miniatures, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. So I'm right with you. I'm really shocked that it's not moving forward, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's dead. I'm sure that it'll come back, because again, that the story is so strong.
Yeah,
the force is strong with that one.
And we've back a few years ago, there was actually, and I don't think this plays in, or maybe it does. I don't know. I don't think this would majorly play into it, but there was an issue that cropped up a few years ago, and I did a couple or 2 or 3 episodes about it, where there was a suit countersuit between Weiss and Hickman and Wizards of the Coast. Read the court documents on the air. I had an attorney friend of mine, Ty Beard, a swell guy. He came on and we went through the document, and it seems to have, that aspect seems to have been amiably cleared up between all the upset parties. But I now that I mention it, it does kind of make me wonder in the back of my head, maybe Wizards of the Coast was like, we don't even want to risk this right now. You know, let's let the land settle completely before they. But again, I don't know, and I think there's a lot of folks out there who really wanted to see it happen.
Oh yeah, I was one of them. I am one of them.
There you go. And it could still, like you say. I mean, just as an outside observer, but surely you have seen stuff that was, you know, oh, well, that's never happening. No, it's happening, you know, in the film industry, just like things that everybody was certain would never come about. And then one day you're just, you know, you're hearing about it in all the press. So
I always find it interesting when the same idea is latched onto. Like, I think there were a few years ago a lot of Pinocchios that came out, and oh God, I'm trying to think of some of the other. It's just interesting how you're like, oh, or like the Capote film. You know, there were 2 versions of that, and it's just interesting when something is bubbling out there, and everyone's like, oh wait, I want to make that. I want to make a version of that. So I don't know. I'm sure Dragonlance will forge on in some way. I hope we get to see it sometime soon.
Yeah. I actually, you know, I can I can enjoy a fantasy movie. You know, you take things for, you take things for what they are, right? You know, you don't buy a dirt bike expecting a luxury street cruiser experience, right?
Right.
You enjoy a thing for what it is. And with that said, what did you think of the Dungeons and Dragons film?
Oh, okay.
mean, I know, but you know,
Initially I wasn't sure about it, and I think it's because my hopes were just so high. But interestingly enough, the more I watched it, the more I really fell in love with it. I mean, of course, I mean, I play spellcasters a lot, and so as a spellcaster, I was watching all the different things happening with the Red Wizard, and I also play druid, so I was a little bit like, wait a minute, she's an owlbear. But then I'm like, okay, if they're changing that, I will go with it, and I thought it was incredibly fun. I don't know. I think it grows on you, and I think that any D&D fan, if you're looking for something out there where it's like, yeah, this is in the realm of what I like to do and what I like to play, it becomes a fun game, especially if you're with friends going, oh wait, because I noticed on my last viewing of it that the bard is always singing to lift the spirits of his partners, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I don't know how I missed it the first time. I think it's because Chris Pine is probably not naturally a singer. No offense. but he is always singing to lift the mood. And I love that. So there are lots of Easter eggs and little treasures in there to be had for sure. Oh my God, the battle at the end is so fun. I have a fondness for gelatinous cubes. So I've surprised my players with those every, because no one thinks to really look like, oh, there's just a puddle, blunk,
Or, they see a skeleton floating down the hall towards them. Cleric steps up with his holy symbol. I've got this. It's not turning.
Nope.
I'm sitting behind the screen rolling the percentage chance for them to realize as it moves forward at 10 feet around. It's lots of fun.
That's a wonderful idea, Bill. Ooh.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the skeleton floating towards the party in the gelatinous cube. It's just it's key. I think the best endorsement for the D&D movie came as I was talking to Heidi Gygax, Gary's daughter, who's got a gaming company. She and her husband Eric Garland. I was thinking of a different friend of mine, but a different friend of mine. But I asked them if they saw it, and they said they loved it. And Heidi said Dad would have loved this movie.
Oh,
Dad would have thought that this was an excellent movie. So I mean, what better endorsement could you ask for than I think my dad, the guy that created Dungeons and Dragons, would have liked the movie,
Yeah.
And
I think it's the best one out there because there was a really great one that was on TV that was the second. You probably know the titles better than I, but I know that there was the first one that came out with Jeremy Irons, and it was just like, oh man,
it was just Dungeons and Dragons, and then there was.
It was pretty rough. And then there was the one that they did for TV, which was so much better. And the rogue gets her arm stuck in the wall, and it's like, oh my God, how are they going to get it out? So there were so many great moments in that second one. We've got it on DVD somewhere, but I think it had a Dracolich even, if I am not mistaken. But
yeah. But there's there's an interview that I did with Gary that's up on YouTube, and he actually talked about the D&D movie he wrote back in the early 80s when he was kind of exiled to California by TSR. He went out there to promote Dungeons and Dragons as a multimedia project, and he got the D&D cartoon started.
Love the cartoon.
The cartoon is so much fun, but he got that started. He shopped the idea around to different toy companies and so on, and he was actually in talks with John Boorman and Edgar Gross and Orson Welles.
Wow!
To put the movie together, but just as things were things were starting to simmer. TSR fell into such dire financial straits, he had to do a 180, go back to Lake Geneva to save the company, and it died on the vine.
Wow. It is amazing what he did. I love that you got to talk with him. My God, how cool.
Yeah, just it was just one of those fun things. But
incredible. It's funny you mentioned the D&D cartoon. I love that there are people on YouTube who have them all out there, and you know what, Saturday mornings I pop them on just because it's so fun. It takes me back to being a kid, and there's always such a great little moral, and including different D&D monsters, and I think it's just so well done. I just saw the I guess the finale. Somebody had put together a version of how it would end. Have you seen that out there?
Yes. That was one of the things. That was one of the reasons why why the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon didn't continue, and why it never went into syndication. Syndication packages have to have a certain number of episodes of a show, or nobody wants to touch it.
Huh.
And Gary had, with his contract with Marvel and Filmation or whoever else was doing the cartoon, you have to pass the scripts by me. I get final script approval, and they said, okay, that's fine. Well, while he was in Wisconsin rescuing TSR from essentially people misguiding the company, the animation and production studios were like, well, I guess we've got to move on. So the final episode, the one that you're talking about, and you guys, you can find this on YouTube. It's really great. Was very, very neat, and it was kind of nice to have a little bit of closure for the kids and everything.
Yeah, because I felt that same way too. I'm like, oh man, what happens to these kids? You get invested in it, and I think that's the fun thing with D&D in particular is what I've discovered over the decades is you get invested in it, and you get invested in your characters that you're nurturing. You get in, and especially as a DM, I love seeing my players grow. It's fun to see like somebody who might start as a shy player just really blossom by, tackling a rogue, or, playing something that lets them just explode, off the page, so to speak. It's really, I'll get proud of them, or I'll get like, oh yeah, they did it. It's interesting because I think some folks think, oh well, it's the DM versus the players, and it's like, no, we're telling a story together. And while I want to challenge them, I do want to also help them. I don't want to like lay all the groundwork of like, here, yes, go here, go here, go here, because sometimes they'll go somewhere entirely different, and that is a fun surprise for me to go, okay, how do I fill this space really quick? Okay, here we go.
Right. But, as my co-host, he's on once a week. He's down in Australia, but as he says, sometimes the dice get to tell a story that neither the dungeon master or the players were expecting.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's funny. Last week I was rolling ones consistently, and my players were so happy. But then there've been times like when my husband DM and he'll roll like 4 20s in a row, and we're like, oh my god,
yeah,
so dead.
Yeah. And it just, now one thing I don't so much take exception to, but I tend to I think there's a mindset, and I do want to hear your thoughts on this. I am definitely what I would term an adversarial DM.
Okay.
And I had a lot of discussions with Gary about this back when I was working with him, and interviewed him. The first time I asked him about this was in the interview. But as an adversarial DM, it's kind of like if you go out, if you have played. Let's say you have practiced at tennis. You have done absolutely everything you can to prepare yourself for tennis, and you step on the court with a pro. Do you want somebody who's going to softly underhand lob the ball so you can smash it every time? Or do you want somebody who is going to play to the hilt, so when you come out victorious, you can say, I got you, sucker. I took the best you could throw at me, and I won, and I love it. I love it when the players play absolutely to the hilt.
Yep.
And they get one over. Oh, I'll put on a big act at the table, like son of, I have to tell you this. I think I mentioned this on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure I told the audience this. Back in December, I was running the holiday one-off. I threw an Ice Devil at the players, and in first edition AD&D, they can throw an Ice Storm spell, which does 3 to 30 points of damage.
Wow.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
It's you're gonna average like 17 on 3d10, right? Laura, I rolled 3 1s.
No. Oh my God.
Up 1 1 1. And I just, as a D, I mean, it's one of those moments. For every, I tricked you people into jumping into the sphere of annihilation, the Tomb of Horrors. There are cases like that. So I tend to think the universe balances itself quite nicely. But philosophically, emotionally, I'm with you. I want the players to succeed. They just don't realize that in the heat of battle.
Well, and I have to jump on your adversarial bandwagon and let you know that I have a reputation with my players for killing them. So this started in Planescape.
Your players or your characters?
My characters. Okay.
Sorry.
But everybody asks, like, if one of the players is away, they'll often text while we're playing the game, and they're like, "Did anybody die yet?" Because I have a terrible reputation for killing characters, and I try really hard not to. I usually have, I'll make another, a quest for them to try to save the person who got petrified, or save the person who died. But I do like to challenge. As much as I love to nurture my players, I love to challenge them. I'm right there with you. I don't like TPKs. I'm not a DM that goes out there to go like, I'm just gonna smash you. But I do. The minute I start my game, I'm pedal to the metal, man. I find that, especially online, that otherwise, if there's a lot of storytelling, I could see my players just kind of drift off. So I'm like, okay, boom, you go here, and a fight breaks out. So there's usually a lot of action in my games, and to your point of really pushing, like how far can they go, and they're usually quite bloody by the time it's done. But they're like, oh yeah, we did it. Right. So it's a great feeling, and I'm right there with you. You feel it with them of like, yeah, they took what I was able to give them challenge wise, and they were able to decimate it. So I will say, I mean, just to give a quick promotion, that I did just run Deborah Ann Wall's Saving the Children campaign, and it's much more thoughtful. It's more like a mystery, kind of like the Candlekeep mysteries, like I have in my background of Candlekeep. And I have noticed that my players really do enjoy a good mystery. So sometimes it's important to balance it out and not just do like a Mad Max. Okay, we're going,
Absolutely. I mean, for it's great to start an album off with the Immigrant Song, but you gotta have a Stairway to Heaven in there to just kind of mellow things out a little bit,
So I have to ask you, you've run Tomb of Horrors.
Yes.
Oh man.
I
have not done it yet. My husband ran it before I met him, and he's like, oh man, it's intense. So
now, DM to DM advice. Look, I get it. I'm the gray-haired grognard. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. But Lord, I promise you, you will get the most satisfaction out of running it if you dust off some AD&D rule books and run it under that rule set. Even if you're just like, look, guys, you're all experienced players. Here's pre-gens. We're running this. You don't have to risk your current characters because we're going to play this in a rule system that we don't normally play. Run it in AD&D. The later editions tend to throw a lot of opportunities to make saving throws to kind of cover the character's hinders. And I posted a long thread on Twitter about this the other day about Tomb of Horrors. It really is meant as a test for how good of a player are you. I don't care what's on your character sheet. How good are you at playing Dungeons and Dragons? How observant are you?
Mm.
You come. Everybody knows this thing. Everybody knows the great devil face from the Tomb of Horrors with a sphere of annihilation in its mouth. Everybody knows. But if you've got a player who doesn't, and I cast detect magic on it. It radiates magic and evil. You as a DM, you might have tells that an observant player would pick up on, going, wait a minute. No, the doorway to a Sararak's tomb is not going to be 150 feet straight in through a tunnel. That thing's dangerous for different reasons. Don't touch it. Tomb of Horrors tests players, not characters. I have said this before, and I firmly believe this. I could take a group of 6 experienced players, give every one of them a 7th level character, cover all the major classes' abilities, and they would make it out alive. I could take a group of 10 inexperienced players, give each of them 2 pre-generated 10th level characters, one to start with and one to back up, and we'll be done before the evening's over.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I will say that my most of my players, I think a few of them started in AD&D and some of them started in 3 and 3.5. So I think they'd be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember Thaco. And, so I must say that this is kind of going off track, but when COVID hit and a lot of people started playing, I did notice that a lot of people were diving back into the original. And I thought that's really cool that people are wanting to try, to see the flavor of it. I think that's really interesting. I will say, having made the leap to 5e, that I do enjoy it. It does seem it does make, combat seems to move quicker, but there's so many things I miss about the monsters. So I am almost always going back to my old books and taking all the great details of the old books and putting them into 5e, just to whether it's backstory or abilities, or there's a lot of things that I do miss in 5e that were just so fleshed out in AD&D for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the mechanicalization. I English goodly, by the way. The mechanization of a lot of things in 5e, like you might get a creature, the gibbering mouther. It can spit, and if its spit hits the wall, it'll burst into a brilliant light that will blind everyone in a certain radius. And that's very cool and flavorful. But then you might look at that in 5th edition, and it's like, oh, it does it does 4d4 radiant, and I'm like, what? Couldn't we just go back to like blinding folks? That's like
can't we petrify people and they're stuck that way? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing, just to mention that, is I think core 5th edition, and I've said this before, I'm not about to shock the audience, or core 5th edition has good bones. If somebody said to me, hey Bill, would you run a 5e game for me and my friends? Yeah, I could absolutely do it. It's a very tweakable system. It just, right now, I think it suffers from what every edition of D&D has suffered all the way back to OD&D: feature creep. Let's release a supplement. Let's add some rules. Let's add some classes. And it just starts to stack up and get creaky. So,
Well said. Yep. Very true.
So I think all editions suffer from it. I think, we could, I don't know what's coming with 6th edition, but maybe it'll, kind of reset the clock, to quote Idris Elba, reset the clock. and we'll get a clean sheet design, and it'll be something that's stripped back and simpler. We'll just have to see.
We will see.
Yes, indeed. So
I was going to ask you. So did you study D&D under Gary? Did you learn it under Gary?
Philosophically, yes. The first D&D book I ever had was Keep on the Borderlands. I did not have a rule book. I had Keep on the Borderlands and a set of dice. And reading the module over and over, when I got home with the module and tore it open, and I was like, cool, now I can play D&D. And it started referencing pages in the rule book. I was like, I may have made a mistake. You know? I was 10, and I was not going to insist that we drive back to the toy store and buy another $10 book.
Right. God, $10 at the time. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, back in 1980, that was spendy. But so I intuited out, because in the middle of Keep on the Borderlands are pullout sheets that have the 2-hit, the saving throws, thief skills, spell lists, and so on. And I was like, well, here's a chart that shows how you roll a d20, and if a character is this level, that hits this armor class. I'm 2/3 of the way there. So I just, for the first year and a half, I played D&D. I just played with Keep on the Borderlands and rules that I made up to fill in the stuff I didn't have a rule book for.
That's brilliant.
But I played D&D until early high school, then got out of it, got back into tabletop in 89 when I went back to college. But none of my group wanted to play D&D because they had played D&D continuously since the late 70s, early 80s. They were over it. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just play whatever you guys are playing. So we played anything but D&D.
Oh, how
but
funny.
It wasn't until the mid-late 90s that I started to feel that itch. And somebody had brought, I don't even remember for what reason now, somebody had brought a player's handbook over. And at this point, I had, with the exception of a copy of Keep on the Borderlands, I'd gotten rid of all my D&D stuff.
No. Oh, no.
It breaks my heart too. But so
we don't know. As kids, we don't know. We're just like, oh, yeah.
So I start leafing through Player's Handbook, and it was just this sudden reinvigoration. And I reached out to a fellow who I later became great friends with, a guy named Paul Stormberg, who is like the chief historian of things TSR and Dungeons and Dragons. He had auctions on Usenet. This wasn't on eBay. This wasn't on a website. This was on text-based Usenet. He would auction off D&D books for a pittance. So I started getting AD&D stuff back, and I was like, it's turn of the century. I'm ready to start playing again. And I set up a little website, the first ever Delver's Dungeon, and I said, I need content. Fired off an email to Gygax at Geneva Online and said, is this Gary Gygax? Is this really Gary Gygax? And a couple hours later, get a response, yes, it is I.
That's crazy. Wow.
And so just started emailing Gary periodically. And then one day back in 2002, I said, hey, could I interview you and post it up on my website? And he said, sure. He gave me permission to record the call. It went up in text form because back in 2002, there was no, I'll host this on,
right?
139 megabyte audio file wasn't going anywhere on the internet. So after that, I just got to know him, and I worked with him on a few different projects, which sadly did not see publication because he passed away before all that stuff could get published. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. I thank you for sharing your story. That's awesome.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. You're my guest, and I just paved over you.
No, well, that's kind of what I'm always curious. I always have lots of questions, and so and this is a dialogue, so yay.
Mm-hmm. But so, I think we had mentioned this before. You started with second edition. But yes. your dad had he had an original D&D. Was it Was it one of like you can see that thing stuff?
Yes, yeah, he had the original from 1977, 76. I can't remember which one. It might have been that. I wish I knew, because I didn't really even look at it, because I think at the time, God, as a kid, unfortunately, you had heard like all the it's so this,
The
it's
moral
so that.
panics, yeah.
Yeah, which is really crazy. It's so ridiculous, because once I finally did get to play it, God, like 12 years later or whatever, I'm like, this is amazing. There's so many great. I think as a player, you learn about yourself. Most of the stories have some great moral to them. It is usually, good versus evil. I mean, usually, and then, of course, when Menzo Branson came out and everybody got to play a drow, that was a whole different experience. And I definitely felt for my DM, because everybody just was killing everybody, basically. It was so many assassins, but I don't know, but truly, for the majority of the experience, it's I think that's also why I like DMing, is I love reading the stories. I every day I think about D&D, so getting in there and getting to see possibilities and see, again, it's great storytelling, and we're doing it as a group, improvisationally. I think that's what's fascinating, is, again, having just run Deborah Ann Wall's one shot, it's like it could have gone many different ways, and my players they forged their own path, and it actually has possibilities for me to homebrew something else, to go on to the next, if I wanted to, and continue that story. I think that's the other thing I love about D&D, is that you can start with a module, you can start with one adventure, and it can inspire you. I know from Twitter, a lot of DMs say, all I do is homebrew. I'll read other things, and I'll get inspired and just create my own world. And I just think that's amazing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear. I think someone mentioned up in the comments earlier, and whoever you are, I apologize if I missed this. I honestly don't know, but someone mentioned that they took Tomb of Horrors and turned it into like a steampunk kind of adventure.
Oh,
which is
cool.
very interesting. A Sararak, the clockwork android, is the villain at the end, maybe, right?
Ooh.
But that's just that. Seeing how people spin off of those modules and where they go with them is so fascinating. I mean, like when Gary wrote Keep on the Borderlands, he said he knocked it out in just a few weeks, and there was no grand plan to it. It was like, here's the outdoor map, there's the keep, there's the Caves of Chaos, here's a little area that the dungeon master can create of their own called the Cave of the Unknown to stick their own dungeon in, and encounter areas scattered around the environment map. The end. And he referred one time in the text of the module to the known world, capital K, capital W. And TSR employees took that, created the known world as an entire campaign world, and the whole thing just radiates out from Keep on the Borderlands.
Wow.
So it really, I mean, it really is amazing. And that's what I love so much. I mean, I've got my Straight Outta Greyhawk t-shirt.
I was wondering. Yes, I was wondering about your shirt.
Straight Outta Greyhawk.
That's awesome.
But the come on, Bill, use your words. The lore books for the Greyhawk box set are like 60 pages each, and it's this massive 5-foot by 3-foot map of, there's the terrain and there's kingdom names, but that's it. What goes in it is up to the DM, and your Greyhawk might be completely different from Flint Fireforge over there in the discussions, his Greyhawk, from Jorge Uribe's Greyhawk. And there is no, and this took me the longest time when I got back into D&D, because I had not played the Greyhawk setting, because I would go to people, hey, is it okay if I do this in Greyhawk? And they're like, You goof. It's absolutely okay. It's your Greyhawk.
Do anything.
You want Gordon Kynan to be the king of thieves? He's the king of thieves. It's your Greyhawk. Do what you want with it.
It's funny, when Planescape came out, I created a cleric of Celestian who is a Greyhawk deity.
There you go.
Yeah. But it's so I enjoyed how Planescape kind of wove the worlds, or at least how we played, how it wove the worlds together. But yeah, so you've mainly been Greyhawk. So did you ever go into 2E with the Forgotten Realms?
The brief time that I did play 2E, yes, it was set in Forgotten Realms. I think the first time I ever actually played a 2E game, believe it or not, was Ravenloft.
Yay! Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
He was running Ravenloft, and we played that campaign for 6 or 8 sessions, I think, and we were like in our late teens or early 20s. We got distracted by something shiny, and then just but
I see that somebody, Kabuki Kid, said Forgotten Realms was originally 1E. Thank you for that correction, and just became bigger in 2E. Yeah, I think since I started in 2E, and I think I started in my character was Madrina of Cloakwood. So I've always, I guess because I started there, it always become it's been one of my favorites. So I'll still hang out in Waterdeep. I'll still start thing. Although we're currently in Suzale for the Golden Vault, just to get some more flavor, more places. So
right on. Speaking of Kabuki, she mentions connection with Deborah Ann Wall.
Woo!
She does game night show for BGG on YouTube. That's very cool.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Audience, I can sit here sometimes, Laura, and just the thing with the and I can look in the description. Wave Whelm and Black Razor.
Oh yes,
yes, that's it.
White Plume Mountain.
Yes, White Plume Mountain, one of my favorites. It's funny. When I was a kid and I looked at that module, I hated it.
Really?
I did. Yeah, as an adolescent, I was like, "Man, what is this nonsense? This is."
Oh my god, it's one of my faves.
Yeah, when I got back into D&D and I grabbed a copy and I sat, I remember I ordered the modules from my buddy Paul. He sent them to me. I went home for lunch. I lived like 15 minutes from my office. I went home for lunch. There was my package. I tear it open and I start reading White Plume Mountain, and I look up at the clock and I'm like, oh, I have been at home for an hour and 45 minutes.
You got sucked in.
Yeah. So White Plume Mountain has a special place in my heart for a few different reasons, and it is just dope fun, and I love White Plume Mountain.
I'm glad it grew on you. Yay!
I would say it is probably. I mean, if I can't cheat and say that G123 is my second favorite D&D module, because that's actually technically 3 modules. If I can only pick one single module per slot of rating, I would say it's Keep on the Borderlands, my first and favorite, but then White Plume Mountain. White Plume Mountain is just dumb fun, and I love it.
It's so well crafted. I feel like every 5 feet you got to check for traps.
And it's so funny you mentioned crafting. I don't know if you read the thread that I put up the other day about White Plume Mountain on Twitter. It was not intended to be a published or publishable adventure.
Whoa.
Really. Lawrence Schick wanted to work at TSR, and he wrote an amalgam of the kinds of things he would put in a module. And he even said, I wanted to put Stormbringer from the Elric stories as the black sword you have to find, but I decided that I didn't want to come across too much as a plagiarist, so I call it Black Razor. Otherwise, doesn't change.
That sword, Black Razor. Oh, man.
Gary leafed through it and said, that's great. We'll publish this. You're hired. And he said, it's not even done. And he's, no, this is great. Let's just publish it as it is. And that's how we got it. You are literally reading Lawrence Schick's resume, his job application, the DSR.
That's amazing. Ooh, shout out to the Moonshays. I hear the Moonshays out there. I'm just seeing the chat.
My experience with Forgotten Realms with the Moonshay Isles in first edition. After all those years, I'm running a new 5e campaign of the Moonshays. It is wild to be back there again. Excellent. There's
so much good stuff. So much good lore.
Yeah. I just when I came back to it, it was Greyhawk was good for lazy DMing because it's like we enter this hex and I don't have to go digging through a lore book. I'm just like, there's nothing there.
I think because I read so many of the novels, the Forgotten Realm novels, in the 90s especially, it became exciting to take my players out there. And again, Ravenloft, oh my gosh, I just love all the different worlds within worlds. It's been interesting to see that evolve. I ran Curse of Strahd last year, and I brought in the oh gosh, I want to say it's DM's Guild. They had the Wedding at Ravenloft, which they totally saved me because almost 3 chapters in, my players almost accidentally killed the heroine, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? So Strahd sweeps in and saves her. So it was quite a fun adventure, but it's become such a story with them of like, oh my god, you almost killed Arena. What are you gonna do? Who killed Strahd? It's fun to see them continue to chat about it, and thankfully there are so many great folks out there who have extra supplements if you get stuck, if you need something else to help take you on another adventure. I did run the Halloween one, which was very, very fun. So the Halloween one shot. I don't know if you've ever run any of the Halloween Strahd one shots.
I've got to be honest, I have not. I have somewhere on a shelf around over here. I have this jewel that. This is like one of the last things that TSR ever put out. They were owned by Wizards when they put this out. This is like the 25th anniversary. This is old enough to drink, vote, and drive now, which depresses the hell out of me because I remember buying this when it was new. And I have to admit that this, where is it? And it's a reprint. Don't get too excited. This is the only Ravenloft book I own, believe it or not. Is the original I6 Ravenloft. So shame on me.
That's okay. You've got a lot of great books back there, that's for sure.
I hope I have not disappointed you too much, Laura.
Not at all. And Injun Joe, I definitely see you of running When Black Roses Bloom for Ravenloft. I definitely got to check that out. So
yeah. And yes, Return of the King, I'm assuming you're talking about the film and not the book, came out 20 years ago, too. That's sobering, isn't it?
Time flies when you're having fun. We must be having a good time.
We must be having a blast, an absolute blast. Is it what's the old Groucho Marx joke? Time flies like a banana. Damn it, I screwed it up. Time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana.
Oh. Groucho, I love it.
Jorge says we're not getting any younger, but you know what? It ain't the years; it's the miles.
There you go.
But and that is one of the great things that I think brings us all back. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Is it's some people might think it's cringe or something like that, but I think D&D really does kind of help us hold on to that youthful spirit. It's the old saying, we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
I completely agree. And that's one of the things I love about it is it brings out the big kid in me. And like I said, I love seeing that with my players, seeing people who are usually like, oh, I'm the corporate this, or oh, I'm, a lot of folks who are so different in their regular lives, and then getting to play like, oh, a backstabby thief, or Nothing against the rogues. I love the rogues, but or a performance bard. It's really fun to be inventive and be improvisational with each other. And sometimes the session zeros are just the best, where it's everybody meeting for the first time is such a blast. And it's somebody had proposed what if you de-age your characters? I know that it's out there in a few things of like where they're suddenly kids again, and how do you take the knowledge that you have as that full-grown character and put it into a kid? And I think that's what we're doing in D&D.
I think you're absolutely right. North of the Rockies, you're old when your favorite metal bands become classic, right? What is this thing? When you're in your teens, you're like, hey, my favorite song's on the radio, and then when you're an adult, anytime from your 20s to your 30s, it's like, hey, my favorite song's in this movie, and you hit a point where it's like, hey, my favorite song is playing in the grocery store.
Right? How does that happen? Although sometimes you'll have something cool where a movie will bring something back, like, from the 60s or the 70s, or, like you have White Rabbit, by Jefferson Airplane. It's like, oh, that's super cool.
I was this close to jumping up and dancing in Thor Ragnarok when they played Immigrant Song in its entirety on the Bifrost. I was hyped from it when they used it, the fight against the Surtur and his minions. But then when they played it without interruption, people can say what they want about Taiki Wata's style, but man, he hit it home. Man, he hit it home in that scene.
I enjoyed it. Yep. I love the music.
The scene where Thor is riding that lightning bolt into the armies of the undead, and Immigrant Song's playing. I want that scene spray painted on the side of a van. Get me a 75 Chevy Step van with blue plush carpet inside, and get that on the side for me. And I'll drive up the coast and pick you up, and we'll play D&D. You, me, and your husband. It'll be a blast.
There you go.
For the weirdo with the OD&D set and the crumbling dice. That's what I.
Oh yeah, and Jorge's shout out to Guardians of the Galaxy. All those oldies popping in there. Really clever how they did that.
Well, I mean, they know they know their audience. I mean, they know we're the ones spending the money. And I was mentioning this, like, I picked this charming little feller up. And I have the box over here? No, of course I don't have the box over here. But this is a toy roper.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And the company that's licensed to make those things, the box that they come in, which of course because I'm a nitwit, I don't have it over here, but the box has the monster manual. I mean, this monster manual.
Wow, my God.
It's got the color illustrations from this monster manual. They're blind draw boxes, and they're all cartoony versions of the monsters in here, because we have the money, and we're the kids that played this when we didn't have money.
Fantastic.
So that they know how to cash in on our nostalgia. I mean, It's just the way it is.
I will say, when I was a kid, I wanted the Princess Leia doll so badly with the buns, and I didn't get it for whatever reason. And so when I grew up, I got her from Empire Strikes Back. So
there you go.
You're showing your toys. I'm like, I'll bring up my toys.
She had better hair at Empire anyway.
She did. Great movie.
Yes. So I don't want to pry too much, but we've all heard the stories about, because this is where we get the cool Venn diagram overlap with your love of D&D and your work. Everybody's heard stories. I heard this guy plays D&D. I heard that actress plays D&D, and so on. Have you met anyone in your work in film and voice acting and that sort of thing who just like completely, like, I did not expect that person to be a D&D player, and they are?
The funny thing is that I get that actually a lot. my voiceover teacher, because we were working on some stuff, and I brought in something from the Golden Vault, and he's like, you play D&D? He's like, I never would have guessed. I'm like, how can you say that? I'm the one who's making all the crazy voices for, like kids and stuff like that. So it surprised me that he didn't think I would play it. But I think I would be surprised if somebody doesn't play D&D, because every time I bring it up, someone's like, oh yeah, I play, or oh yeah, I have a group, or so
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever asked on a super high level with some of the folks, that because it's when you're on set and you're time is money and things are move. It's you can't get too personal. Oftentimes you're just really focused on the lines, and there's lights and the crew is moving around, and there's like all sorts of different elements. So sometimes you don't get that fun behind the scenes, so what are you, if you played D&D, what would you, so I would love to get to that level where I'm hanging out in the green room and can ask, so hey, what do you think, or let's play, you want to play a quick one shot or something, since we got to wait while they set up things. But it would say, truly, the more I talk about it and find people who do play it, it just in the the regional theater realm of acting, it's like I would be surprised to find people who don't play. It's really fun. A friend of mine who she worked with Ang Lee and Harrison Ford. She's an older actress in LA. She told me she's like, oh yeah, I play D&D. I'm like, get out. I mean, she's in her 60s, and she just didn't strike me as that. She's like, oh yeah, I played a paladin, and I'm like, yeah, go girl. I think it's our internals, it's our hidden side coming out. So I'm glad we get to talk about it here.
Absolutely. I had a friend for many years. He is absolutely out of the business. It's not his thing, but he did digital effects and match moving out in Hollywood for many years. And through one of his companies, he was working on one of the very early Fast and Furious movies. And he because for a lot of the close-up shots, match moving and how that has to work, okay, I need you to sit completely still for me for a few minutes while I do this. He got to talking with Vin Diesel, and he and Vin Diesel wound up very simpatico. And as it turns out, everybody and their brother knows Vin Diesel is into D&D. His character name is tattooed like a gangster tat on his chest and whatnot. Here's a little reveal. Vin Diesel is very into historicals. Assyrians versus Hittites. He said that they were, I can't remember if he said that they just had like a few minutes to sit in a meeting room, or if they were at a party and there was a big table or something like that. But my buddy Greg said to him, he said, this would be so great to set up a game on. And Vin Diesel's like, yeah, I could run some American Civil War, or maybe some Ancients on this. So he ends up talking to Vin Diesel for a couple of hours about miniature wargaming, not even D&D, miniature wargaming. That's
amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, it fascinated me initially when I started hearing about this person's in D&D, that person's in D&D. Now I would be more surprised if I had reached out to you on Twitter just for whatever reason and said, "Oh no, I don't play D&D." That would have been more of a surprise than
yes.
an actor and actress does play D&D at this point. What was it?
Keeps our imaginations going.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And as I said, we grow old because we stop playing. We don't stop playing because we grow old.
Right.
And it's just the absolute truth. And folks, I'm here to sell you something. Cost is $0. You just got to go find yourself a copy. This is the fountain of youth. This is the secret of life. Trust us on this one. Trust us on. But so let's get down to brass tacks. We've been talking for a good bit, and I could talk your ear off probably for a good bit longer. Laura, favorite class and race combo and campaign setting to run them in. Go.
Oh, jeez.
But I'm asking the hard questions. I'm sorry, it's that kind of show.
Man, I really love the half elves. And hmm, and I love the mages. So I had played it's funny, I just had a chat with another player today about Spellfire, and I was a Spellfire wielder. So God, I really loved playing her. Her name was Jade, and she was a Wujen, and I loved playing her in the Forgotten Realms. But I gotta say, my favorite place to play is Planescape. I love the planes. Love, love, love it. And I think, I mean, here, that's where you got the Tieflings originally. And I played an Aasimar out there. So I don't know if I gave you a favorite. It's really hard to pick.
I know.
So hard to pick.
It really is. I mean, that's like, for me, that'd be like saying, Bill, what's your favorite Zepp album and track? All of them?
Okay.
Question here. What?
Yeah, I see Kabuki.
Favorite fantasy movie other than Lord of the Rings?
Oh, dude. I do love Dune. The recent Dune was just so well done. That whole mythology and the Bene Gesserits and whatnot. It's really tricky because I do love the Lord of the Rings, but yeah, I think I would lean towards Dune. There's also Excalibur. I mean, oh, it's hard to pick one. It's really hard to pick one. I also love Flash Gordon. Oh man, the old 1980 Flash Gordon.
There you go.
And I can't wait for Dune 2. It looks amazing.
Hi, Camp. I can't decide if gaming with Brian Blessed wouldn't be the most awesome thing ever or the most horrifically frustrating experience in the world. By the end of the night, I'll just be lobbing beer bottles at him. Get out, get out, get out.
What a voice.
I watch interviews with Brian Blessed. That guy, I think, would just eat that energy up. Do you know, he was in a play with his daughter. I don't mean like a father-daughter thing, like on theater. He dropped from a heart attack in the first act. Main character, Brian Blessed, keeled over from a heart attack and came back in the fourth act to finish the play.
That is tenacious. That is tenacious.
I can just absolutely see him talking. So I told my heart, listen, you bastard, you will not stop.
You're gonna listen to me. Yeah, that's right. Oh man, Blackadder's getting shouted about. Somebody had asked about Shakespeare. I love Midsummer Night's Dream. Again, fairies. I love anything. I love the fae. So another book recommendation for you then, and it's also Poul Anderson, and it ties a little bit into Three Hearts and Three Lions. Read A Midsummer's Tempest. Ooh, I will check it out.
I will send you links to those. I will dig up some.
These are all great recommendations.
They're great books. But North of the Rocky says Brian Blessed's teeth should have their own stat block.
Yes. Oh man, I didn't read The Sandman. God, that was another great series I thought on Netflix. Oof, man.
Sandman. I have been meaning to watch that. This is one of those, like, if you told me, yes, Bill, I'm friends with Harrison Ford, I would just be like, that's so very cool. And then I might not ever mention it again, because you never want to come off as exploitative of your friends, right? I have a dear friend, her and her husband run my FLGS, and she is dear friends with Neil Gaiman.
Oh my God.
That's like, every once in a blue moon, I'm like, what if I gave her a Sandman comic and asked? No, I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. But there was something. Okay. 1982 Conan.
I was kind of a kid then, so I don't remember it as well. I remember Red Sonja better. Is 1982 Conan, is that the one where there's the little teeny princess? I mean, she's so teeny compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Grace Jones, is that the one?
That's Destroyer, and that was 84, I think. Okay. 84.
I remember that one. Yeah. No offense. But
no, that's okay. That just, you now have a movie to watch.
I do. I love it.
James Earl Jones is in it. He's absolutely amazing in it. Olivia Diabo, or no, was she in the second one? Somebody let me know. Somebody in the audience let me know. Look that up.
Oh, the score. Yeah, we'll definitely check out the score.
Mako is in. Well, he's in both of them, but he's in the first one as Akira the Wizard. Okay, so Kabuki said she was in the second, but I do recommend. I do recommend the first Conan.
I will definitely check it out. I'm sure I must have seen it as a kid, but I don't remember it as well. Every once in a while, we'll pop out some old movies. Just, I mean, again, the Excalibur from WoW is just so classic.
Yeah, and it's funny. Borman made Excalibur because he couldn't get the rights to make Lord of the Rings. Did you know that?
Oh, how funny! I did not know that.
Two-part Lord of the Rings film, and he could not get it because it was tied up with so many different companies.
Oh, I bet.
But
I love it. It's practically an opera. That's a quote.
yeah. 82 Conan is amazing. Sandy Bergman's in it. She is fantastic. I recommend a watch night for you and the hubby. Pop some popcorn.
I love it. I'm sure I could convince him. I'm sure.
Roast some lizard on a stick. You'll understand the reference.
There you go.
Lizard on a stick. How did we mention Sandman? Any fantasy comics that you read, or just stuff in general that kind of feeds to?
I mean, it's not fantasy. I mean, I wouldn't consider it fantasy, but I was really into the X-Men. I mean, mainly I think the cartoon had come out and my brother was really into it. And when I moved to New York, I loved hitting the comic book shop. And that's where I found Rocketeer. I know you have a Betty Page thing. And I was like, oh my God,
I appreciate her yes, please continue.
Yes, Betty Page, yes. And yes, the 90s animated X-Men theme is so great. It's awesome. So that's probably more where my comic book experience went. I do remember seeing the Sandman out there. My husband read the Sandman. He goes for the darker stuff. I remember he had the Watchmen. I definitely love those stories for sure. But the X-Men will always be near and dear to my heart, and the Rocketeer for sure. Oh man, I need to see the Dave Stevens documentary. Kabuki was talking about that. Yeah, Dave Stevens, definitely.
Yeah.
Love.
X-Men was actually my first superhero comic. I did Star Wars up until as strange as it may seem, when I was a little kid, I adored Spider-Man and Batman.
Oh yeah.
But when I hit my early teens, superhero comics just seemed like spandex people beating each other up. You know?
Yes.
And I remember going into the 7-Eleven, and I was getting ready to play either Commando or Olympic Games video game. They were side by side in the back of the 7-Eleven. And there was the spinny rack of comic books, and I saw X-Men 179. And it is the issue where Kitty Pryde she has betrothed herself to Caliban of Blocks. And there's this beautiful picture on the cover of her in a wedding dress, tears running down her face, and Caliban just looking like Caliban in a tuxedo next to her. And I leafed through it and I was like, holy shit, I didn't know comics could be like this. So I bought it, and then I got the next one, and I got the next one, and I got that, and it just sucked me in.
Yeah, and the story, it's epic.
For years, I was an X-Men fanatic. And right around the time the D&D books went, the collection of comic books went.
No!
My daughter, my oldest daughter, I should say, since she was about 12 or 13, fell in love with and started reading comic books. And she and I will talk Marvel stuff into the night and the next morning. but I was telling her what I had told you about that. And for Christmas, not this past Christmas, but the Christmas prior, she got me that issue of X-Men. She went out and
Oh, go
mint
her.
a copy of that issue of X-Men. I'm trying to find a frame for it, or else you would see it up around me somewhere. But I was exceptionally happy. But
Oh, that's amazing. That is
yeah,
very cool. I love that it's in the family. It's the generations. That is one of the things I love about. I don't have kids, but we have nieces and nephews, and we
yeah,
started.
you do for them a lot, don't you?
Yeah, we started playing D&D with my nephews and my older niece a few years ago before COVID hit, and it was so fun. Oh my God! Again, getting to see like the little brother being a barbarian. I mean, very much like the D&D cartoon. It's so fun. And so every time we go out there, he always asks, "Hey, can we play D&D? Can we play?" So we try to have something going for them. But my brother's kids they're 5 and they're just not. I keep trying to build there, but they're not there yet. But
Right.
it will happen. It will happen.
Well, if I can recommend their gateway to see it, it might be a little bit spendy, but see if you can grab a copy of TSR's old board game Fantasy Forest that's complete in good condition.
Oh, that's cool.
It's
That's a great idea.
yeah, it's right about Candyland or Hi Ho Cherry-O level.
Mhm.
It's you can hook them in. Come on, kids, play it as
Yeah.
you can build, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, my 13-year-old nephew, he just loves it. So, it's always fun to talk. He is really into Tiamat. He wants to battle Tiamat. So I'm hoping we get to go there sometime soon.
There you go. There you go. I can honestly say that I have not sent a group to hell yet, but what evening's still young.
It is. You haven't? How has that not happened? I've been there several times.
I keep bringing help to Greyhawk. I keep sending demons and devils to Greyhawk. I figure,
There you go. There you
they're
go.
they're out on the road. So, but no, I have I have done extra planar stuff with the party, just not the Abyss, not yet. I mean,
Oh man, you gotta
they're
go to the
playing.
Abyss.
None of my players watch this show, so I'm not worried about them hearing this. And the modules are old anyway, but we just started G1 a couple of weeks ago. I'm doing the entire Giants Drow, and then the big the
Oh,
showdown against Loth if it comes to that. That
yeah.
takes place in the Abyss, so we'll have to see how that works out. Is there like a module or maybe just an adventure that you've thought of just in the back of your mind, like you've got it just completely organized the way you want to, that you kind of view as your Abbey Road, your Pet Sounds, your physical graffiti, your perfect vision for how a campaign, well, maybe not necessarily end, but literally one of the highest points that you haven't gotten to do yet?
Oh, that I haven't gotten to do.
That you haven't gotten to do yet.
Oh.
And you don't have to give too much details, just in case you're worried somebody might hear.
No, I mean, I usually try. I'm a little. I don't have like lots of time to plan, and so I usually will do it spontaneously. But I feel like I've done a lot of the cool stuff I wanted to do. Like I took all of Edgar Allan Poe's works and I put them into a sort of Ravenlofty setting. That was really fun. I love doing holiday stuff. Like I did something riffing off of the Hogfather. For those who know Terry Pratchett wrote with Neil Gaiman, Good Omens, and the Hogfather riff was so fun, especially for my players who know Terry Pratchett. I also there's a great thing from Tomb of Annihilation. I hope I'm not giving away too much. Where there's a dinosaur race, and I rejiggered that to be a ram riding race for Christmas, and that was for my nephews and oldest niece, and they just absolutely loved it. In fact, the one who was the barbarian picked up his ram because it wasn't moving fast enough, drank a haste potion, and ran with his ram across the finish line to win. And it was the most inventive thing I've ever seen. So I don't have anything I haven't tried yet. I think like some of the folks are mentioning in the chat, I really want to look at, I'd like to revisit the older Ravenloft adventures in there. I have some of the campaign setting stuff, but like the Black Rose, I loved running Bluet Spur, which was with the Illithids and the Litholiches and stuff like that. So I would like to revisit those and see what inspires me to go elsewhere. I will say that I keep mentioning her, but Deborah Ann Wall, her Heroes Feast Saving the Children, it definitely leaves it open-ended. I'm tempted to create a next level thing because it's for level 10 characters, and I think there could be something really fun that kind of goes off of the some of the other riffs in 5e. So yeah, we all love a good mind flayer. Yes, Kabuki.
Exactly.
So I know that was a very long-winded answer of saying no, I don't have anything.
No, that's okay, because I think you do. I mean, you know, even if you don't have the complete package, as DMs, we are tasked with always having those ideas on tap. You know, it's just, you know, you may want to let them. We may want to let them cook. You know,
Yes.
But
Indeed.
yeah, and I mean, I know I've told you about Plain Jane. That is.
Yes.
Yeah, that is an idea that was like years in the making as a thought experiment before I sprung that on my players. But
I will say I would love to bring her in, and I also somebody was chatting today and showed a neat NPC character. I mean, I will say that the D&D community is so generous, especially online. When you chat with each other, where they're like, oh, you know, I've created this character if you want him to show up, you know. So it's really kind of fun to see these characters, to get inspired and to see how you can fit them into your adventures.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's when I was doing the wind up there before I brought you on. You know, that's one of the things, and it's real easy to have and to keep online presence as positive places. Look, just don't engage with the ugliness, you know?
Yes.
Just having an IT background and having talked to people about it, I know how Twitter works, you know? Even if you're scrolling, if you stop and stare at the outrage bait, Twitter goes, aha, you want more of this. Yeah. So the next time you find your timelines filled with a little more, and then it's filled with a little more, and heaven help you if you actually click on it. So I read posts by you and posts by Patty's Parlor and posts by many, many other people that are out there in the audience, and some other people that I haven't, you know, that I haven't spoken to, but I keep it focused on the stuff that I like and the people that I like. And it actually is a very pleasant place for the exchange of ideas. I mean, you know, when I decided to promote the Delver's Dungeon on Twitter, I was like, I'll just post up stuff and I'll just ignore the noise. But I found the more I did that, the more goodness I got. And I met you. That's and I met so many other good people. And it's just a matter of curating what comes in, you know, positive in, positive out.
Yeah.
Positive back in. Totally. And if you, you know, if you go out and you're like, oh, I'm going to click on this outrage link and I'm going to read that, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to get mad and I'm going to say, you know, what are you, some kind of, you know, then you're going to get back out of that exactly what. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I have an acting Twitter account, and then I have what I call my D&D account, and it's just so much more fun to come on D&D because there's always some sort of fun conversation. You know, you can riff on, hey, which creatures with the, you know, that start with the letter F do you like today? You know, and I always get such joy out of it, and I love how people will share, you know, again, some of the creatures they've created, or, you know, players or NPCs, or, you know, it's a blast.
Yeah. GPA there says that's the way to tweet, curate it, follow Laura. Very nice.
Rock and roll. Thank you for joining.
What I'll have to do a roundtable one night and have you on. Well, what a friend of mine, unfortunately, he's not proximate anymore. He moved up to Georgia. But it's Tracy Lesh, and I don't know if you caught any of the shows when I've had Tracy on, but Tracy is one of the artists who worked at TSR back in '75.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he did this painting here. Now, to be fair, that's a canvas print. He did not give me an original painting, but he did the original art for the Mind Flayer. Like the first ever vision of the Mind Flayer was done by Tracy. And
wow,
when I went fairly early on, I mean, basically, I have guests on this show by pestering them ceaselessly until they block me on social media or cave and decide to show up. But when I looked on Facebook and it was like, oh, Tracy Lesh, he lives in blah, blah, Florida. And I was like, that's like half a county over. So I sent him a friend request and just one thing led to the other. And I mean, here I am. This is my buddy who helped kickstart the existence of RPGs with his artwork. So, you know, that was kind of fun. So that's just how I do it. You know, I just go out there and I'm positive and I've gotten to talk to great people, just amazing creators and creative people. And it's a lot
love that you take the chance to make the connection, that you reach out. And not everybody can, not everybody will say yes. Like, I think when you and I talked about it, my God, it might've been back in the summer, and it just, scheduling can get tricky, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I got an evening. Let's make it happen.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being able to do that. But, and, you know, there have been plenty of people who said, you know, no, thank you. But I bear no animus. I mean, I reached out to someone, another TSR artist, and I said, hey, would you like to do this? And said, no, absolutely not. And they let off. They said, I am painfully camera shy. I don't even want to be in this documentary about TSR artists. And I said, well, you could just come on voice. And he said, that's almost as bad. So I said, you know what? Thank you very much. It was an immediate response I got back. And that's cool. It was a positive thing, but it's like Tracy told me, I mean, he had no idea that people still enjoyed old school D&D artists. He knew that D&D was still out there, but the year, I can't remember if it was the year before I met him or it was the year I met him, but I didn't know him that well. He had done a little Kickstarter or GoFundMe or something so he could go up to GaryCon. It was when this book, Art and Arcana. Do you have this, by the way?
Which one is it?
This is Art and Arcana, the Art of Dungeons and Dragons, and I have this is my reader copy, so I don't have to drag it out of the book.
Oh, cool. I think my nephew might have got me that. We have a huge. It's not out here, which I can show you guys, but a lot of wonderful stuff. Again, since my husband's playing since 1E. We used to go to, it was such a great thing whenever, when payday would come, we'd go down to Complete Strategist in New York, which I think has been here since the 70s and always get some new books.
I love cracking open a copy of Dragon from the 70s and there's ads for the Complete Strategist in it.
Yeah. So much. Yeah. Yep. RPG grandma. I hate to have to cut this short, but I actually have an audition that I have to film after this.
Oh my gosh. I'm keeping you from work. Okay.
It's all good. So I might have to do a part 2 with you if you would like to. If
might have to. I think you will if you
because I know we've got a lot of things we wanted to talk about.
I know there's so much, and I kept stepping on you, and I apologize for that.
No. I'm always, like I said, I'm naturally curious, and I love to hear. I was curious about your story as well. So, it's just it's fun to see what's happening in the chat, what people what they're curious about. But yeah, let's definitely do this again. This was so much fun, Bill. I'm sure we'd have lots of fun to continue on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you are welcome back anytime, and for any reason whatsoever. Please feel free to come back and shoot the breeze. It was wonderful to have you here, Laura.
Oh my
Thank you
gosh.
so much for stopping by.
Such a pleasure. And I just want to say to anybody out there in the audience that if you've ever wanted to try D&D, go for it. It's definitely worth it. And if you've ever wanted to try to DM, please work with your DM if you need someone to help guide you along. There's lots of great dungeons out there that are for first level. I mean, the players will most likely be open to the ride and wanting to work with you. So I do hope that more DMs are bored today because it's such a blast. You'll have a good time. But
Absolutely.
you guys, and there's so much love happening in the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. But
Thank you, Laura. Best of luck with your interview, and I'm sure we'll be tweeting at each other this time tomorrow. So have
definitely.
a lovely.
And I'll see you for part 2, Bill. But thank you for hosting this and doing what you do, man.
You're welcome. Peace.
Happy trails.
Bye-bye. Well, guys, how fun was that? I have just been so excited about having Laura on the show, and thank you everybody for being here. That was so much fun, wasn't it? We'll be back tomorrow night, guys, with some classic Gamma World. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, if you like seeing guests like Laura, if you like seeing our live Let's Plays, if you like seeing our deep dives, if you like it when Kyle comes on and we just shit talk, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. And Robert Phillips is ready to play some Gamma World, because I saw Tom Bruno's comment about Gamma World. But anyway, Robert Phillips is ready to play some Ravenloft. But thank you all for being here, guys. It was an absolute blast. And thank you everyone for being nice in front of Miss Daniel. But I'll be back tomorrow with more TTRPG madness. Until then, everybody, be good to each other. Be nice to each other. It just takes a little bit of human decency. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.